Because we don't understand how life formed, it is difficult to estimate this probability. The likelihood of a complex molecule like DNA being created by random collisions of atoms in a primordial ocean is fantastically small. In an infinite universe, it would happen in some places, but they would be very far apart. If we want to find advanced intelligent life, our best bet is to listen for radio signals.
Look up to the stars and the forests that surround. Do you see them? Do you hear them? Are they there? SpacedOutRadio.com presents S4 with Forest Moon Paranormal's Eric Cooper and friends. Also, take the time to join the Forest Moon Paranormal Facebook group.
I knew I should have made a left turn at Albuquerque.
Aliens, Bigfoot, conspiracy, Area 51, Dogman, ghosts, cover-ups, UFOs. The hidden will reveal itself.
It's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
Buckle up, space travelers. It's time to go live on S4 with Eric Cooper.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to S4 with Eric Cooper, broadcasting live from the beautiful mountains of Concrete, Washington. And now, without further ado, your host, Forest Moon Paranormal's own, Mr. Eric Cooper.
Hey, good evening, everyone. Coming to you live from the mountains of Concrete, Washington, just like Corey said, the home of Forest Moon Paranormal. So the opinions and views of S4 do not reflect that of Spaced Out Radio. Spaced Out Radio, if you haven't heard of it, is www.spacedoutradio.com. Coming to you live every night from 9 to midnight Pacific Standard Time with Dave Scott and James Tyson on the weekends. So, Dave's birthday is Wednesday. I know I'll be on Spaced Out Radio for Dave's birthday. And I was on his birthday show last year. Always an awesome show. Y'all can't miss that one. So how's everyone doing tonight?
I'm great. A lot of hours work
Good
this
deal.
week, but other than that, I'm good. Seth, how you doing?
Oh, I hear you. We've been slammed with cases.
I'm doing all right. I'm good. I'm glad to be back. Sitting here in my chair, ready to rock and roll.
Good deal. And you have a new old show coming up, don't you, Seth? You want to talk about that for a second?
Yeah. A lot of people aren't aware of this. Some of you are. But I was the creator of the concept of Dark 30. And anything paranormal, Dark 30. I don't care who you are. I don't know yet if I'm going to put it in a TV format, but I know that it's going to be entertaining. I have my first official episode of that up on the Dark 30 Quickening Facebook page. I'm going to talk about some things that basically I don't want to maybe drag other people into and get them in trouble. I might get down and dirty on some things that, maybe I might lose a few friends over, maybe I won't. But I feel there's things that need to be said, and I think I'm the guy that needs to say them. But when I'm not doing that, S4 is still my primary focus. But yeah, I'm glad you allowed me to pitch it. So if there's anything anybody wants to talk about, be a guest on. I'm not going to name him, but like I said before, I had a guest before in which the last crucial pieces of the interview went missing, and YouTube deleted us and said there was a copyright infringement, which is funny considering the fact that I had absolutely no music whatsoever. And if you know me personally, if you've known me long enough, I created Dark 30. A lot of people says, okay, how'd you come up with that? Yeah, well, when I was little, my grandpa, he was in the Air Force. I've talked about him on the air before. And when I was a little boy, it would get dark out, and I'd go over to his house to visit. He'd say, it's time to go to bed. I said, I don't want to go to bed, Grandpa. He says, it's dark 30, and that's when all the monsters come out. It's time to go to bed. He says, look out the window. I look out. Sure enough, it's dark. He'd say, yep, it's dark 30. Go to bed. So that has a special meaning. There's certain words and phrases I'm not going to use that I'm not supposed to use. But Dark 30 is my baby.
I hear you.
With that being said, though, S4 and being under the Spaced Out Radio umbrella right now is still my primary focus. Dark 30 is probably going to run no longer than 45 minutes. Just something to listen to, maybe when we're sitting down and chilling. But I like the, right now we are kind of the paranormal Three Musketeers, if you will.
There you go. And yeah, I actually enjoy listening to your rants. When you do your video rants, I sit there and listen and go, yep, that's my boy. Yep. Yeah, preach it. Yep. So most definitely, and yeah, like I said, man, we're just getting. I don't know what's going on. Well, actually, I kind of do know what's going on, but the veil is thinning, folks. The veil is thinning, and I know before I said there is no. I have doubts about there being a veil, but I'm hearing others. I don't like seeing stories, but I'm hearing other words that there is indeed a veil, and it is thinning. And we're seeing some pretty radical fairy cases in the last 2-3 months, and fairies are on the rise, and it's because their veil is thinning. And June 21st is midsummer, and that's actually a fairy holiday. But that's not why they're coming out. They're coming out because their veil is thinning, and there's some serious crap that's about to hit. Just be aware of it.
I think there may be some connection with the Schumann resonance, excuse me there. At last I looked, and this is, I think I talked about this in one of the episodes before. At last I looked, that Schumann resonance jumped to 112 hertz, which is the largest amount that it has ever been, ever, in the lifetime that we have known that it was there. Since its discovery up until maybe 5 years ago or so, I believe, that resonance was about 7 to 9 hertz, and that's all it had ever been. And then in the last few years, it has jumped considerably, 40s, 50s, 90s, and now, like I said, the last time I checked was 112 was the biggest spike. And that resonance has to do with basically it's touted to be that resonance of the planet. It affects us energy-wise, vibration-wise, mentally, and we can affect it as well. But like I said, I think there may be some connection with the Schumann resonance spiking and the veil thinning. It's highly possible.
It makes sense. Maybe we should get some research done on that. And since we have our resident scientist in the chat room, Markham, what do you think about the Schumann resonance? We'll have to have you on for a show just on that, if Markham wants to take a look at that. And Don's asking if we're doing a flat Earth. No, we're not. I don't know, Mark, unless she's talking to Markham in the chat. And folks, just because we have a topic that we talk about here on S4, if you have questions in the chat room that are paranormal and general related, by all means, post them in caps. And if you're listening live and you can't get to the chat room, look at the bottom of your S4 or Spreaker screen, and you'll see a little chat bubble. You click on that, and you get right into the chat room. So, yeah, okay, good deal. So Markham's going to look into the Schumann resonance. So we're talking, it's resonance, Don, the second one, resonance. So tonight we're talking alphabet soup, and I'm going to be interjecting as we're talking because for the ones that are new to listening, I'm taking Homeland Security, getting an associate's in Homeland Security, and learning a whole lot. And you know, I'm 48 years old and going back to school basically, so it's different. And I'm still pulling a B average, which is I'm happy with that. But I'm learning a whole lot about how our government works and the crap that presidents have done in the past involving the security of this nation. And I'm going to talk about 9/11 for a second because, 9/11, everyone thinks, oh, it was an inside job, and it could have been. What I do know for a fact is our intelligence services knew what was going to happen. They did their homework. They did the research. They had the data. They had the facts. They knew we were going to be attacked on 9/11. That's a fact. That's not conspiracy. That is fact. They actually told, all the higher ups, it's coming. This is what's happening. They said, no, it's not. It's not going to happen. Look what happened. Our intelligence services are the ones who rang the warning bell, and our president and all the cabinet and all that didn't listen to it. So there you go. That is fact. Did they let it happen because they knew it was going to happen? That's the part that you'll never know. But anyway, so what do you got for us tonight, Seth?
Well, I'll tell you what. First thing, you talked about 9/11, and I kind of have to put my leash on for that because, again, when I get going. But I have to say, my only comment regarding that is short and sweet. I wish we really could have recruited Tattoo from Paradise Island, because even if anyone could have found the plane that supposedly hit the Pentagon, it would have been him. The thing is no pieces to a plane were found. No pieces to a plane. And could you imagine, scientifically, Markham should comment on this. How fast would an airplane have to be going in order to disintegrate? Because that's what would have had to have happened. And if that had to have been going fast enough for it to disintegrate, then more than that big chunk that was already taken out of the Pentagon would have been gone. Now, the thing that a lot of these secret agencies aren't aware of is that a lot of us are waking up. We know the difference whether or not it's raining or when someone's taking a piss on our shoes. And we're tired. We're tired of the way things are run. We're tired of the way things are done. And it's not about left versus right anymore. It's about the fact that we're awake and we want our information. And one thing that relates to all of this, and I like to make people's heads spin, one thing that relates to all of this, if you had ever seen the movie The Bug's Life, there's a scene, I posted it on my page, there's a scene in which, the grasshoppers are coming and taking the food from the ants. And there's less grasshoppers, like the government agencies, than there are ants, which are the citizens. And that grasshopper says, what's going to happen when the ants realize that they can outnumber us and really, really, put a hurting on us? We need to wake up. And the sad thing about all this is we are hitting a select few. We are hitting a very special select few when we have our spaced out radio listeners and our S4 listeners. They are the ones who are no longer apathetic. They are waking up. They are paying attention. They are investigating what they see on TV and not believing it. They're not seeing a lab coat and think, okay, instant doctor. And the listeners that we have are the most intelligent listeners in the paranormal community, hands down. When you pay attention to some of the stuff that even shoots off from the main topic, your mind is going on both sides. But what I got, my main focus is on the NSA and the CIA. And the main reason I want to start with the NSA to begin with is because supposedly they monitor what we say and what we do. I haven't had that proverbial knock on the door yet, so maybe I haven't been loud enough and mean enough. But when I get the knock, to me, that's going to be a trophy. If I disappear, as broke as I am financially, if I disappear, then I was saying something. Mm-hmm. But, a little history of the NSA is, back in the earliest parts of the 20th century, our military, they were having trouble keeping up with monitoring stuff with, radio was on the rise, ham radio was on the rise, and with the transmission and reception of certain signals, we wanted to be able to hear what was being said, but we also didn't want other people hearing what we were saying and what we were doing. That's where, we had the idea and the advent of our code talkers. Okay, so the NSA came about. Even cryptology here, the study of codes and how to crack them. And it became one of the most, if not the most important tool for espionage and intelligence back in those days. And so during World War I, the Army had first created the Cipher Bureau as part of the Military Intelligence Division, and they would help out with the radio intelligence. However, the Bureau was short-lived, and it went down in about 1929, and it kind of fell asleep until about World War II. And once it was reestablished, it was the core of the Signal Security Agency, and it played a very important role in how we would gather our intelligence during the war. And not only that, but I have to say an important thing that came from this is you ever hear a grandma, a grandpa, or a mom and dad say, eat your carrots, they help with your vision. Eat your carrots, they'll make you see sharper. Now, they do benefit the eyesight, but not as much as they say. And this actually came about as one of the first cases of propaganda from what would eventually evolve into the NSA, is because the Germans during World War II were wondering how the hell we were able to catch their planes at night and take them out of the air. And so we were telling the Germans, we would purposely transmit propaganda and say that it was the carrots that were giving our soldiers supervision in order to be able to see at night and take the planes down. And then we notice a consumption of carrots, and even during the war, despite some of the trade sanctions and stuff that may have been in place, Germans were still actually buying carrots from us. So, I mean, when you really think about it, they're buying carrots from the enemy. So anyway, little interesting, maybe useless tidbit there, but our military and intelligence agencies transformed after World War II in 1947. The National Security Act passed, and it created the CIA and the NSC, which is the National Security Council. And this was done initially to combat any new or future threats to national security at that time. The Armed Forces Security Agency was also created within the Department of Defense for the sole purpose of basically documenting and keeping track of any electronic communication throughout civilian agencies. And this included even monitoring amateur radio, citizens band, things like that. And after a little while during the operation, some things that they really didn't like was the fact that certain departments weren't very effective. And so the Brownell Report, in order to combat the ineptness of this whole thing, Harry Truman issued a memo in 1952, and it transferred the AFSA into the NSA. And in Truman's memo, the NSA's purpose was to provide, quote-unquote, an effective, unified organization and control of the communication intelligence activities of the United States conducted against foreign governments. And this included being in bed with the FCC in later years. And you can go ahead, boss.
And back then, I believe, is when they had the U-2 spy plane, and they're using that for most of their visual intelligence. Isn't that about the same time frame?
Yes.
Right.
And, you got to understand, you can look back and see what the technologies roughly were, but the radio technology, sure, we have all this digitized stuff right now, but our listening and reception hasn't really evolved that much because, honestly, there's a big difference between a transmitter and a receiver, and it doesn't take a whole hell of a lot to make a receiver. You can take right now, and kids don't do this at home because of what it is. I have to say a disclaimer. But if you take a little earbud and you take left or right, it doesn't matter. You make sure the wires are exposed, your positive and your negative. And you make a little coil around a razor blade. And at the very end, you tape that to a watch battery. And you can walk around like the airports and certain places and stuff like that. You're going to pick up transmissions. So being able to listen really was a strong point back then, just as much as it is now. Because back then, really, there wasn't the whole use of like a subaudible tone and things like that, like the police frequencies and such use. But by the time the Cold War came around, they were dealing with some different challenges and opportunities, and this allowed the NSA to basically give them an excuse to get more people involved and go deeper and deeper into things for the purposes of an intelligence gathering operation. Now, the NSA managed to decipher Soviet codes for a brief period late in the 40s until a mole notified the Soviets about the NSA. Then the Soviet codes would not be successfully deciphered again until about 1979, 1980, when they started to invade Afghanistan. And then next thing you know, we're piggybacking off of China in 1964. Once the agency deciphered communications that discussed the detonation of China's first nuclear weapon. The NSA was also active and still is active in the Middle East. The USS Liberty was attacked by Israelis on accident, they say, in a joint air and sea assault on June 8th, 1967, when they were on a mission to get intel. Another incident of note occurred in January of 1968, when North Korean forces captured the USS Pueblo while we were trying to gather intel off the North Korean coast. Despite drawbacks, in 1970, the NSA had become very successful, and in terms of the government, was a superstar among the ABC organizations, which most of them, irrelevant to this conversation, by the way, were created during the New Deal by FDR. And now the NSA kind of took a back seat and was there if needed, largely unknown to the American people, the citizens. But during the course of a Senate investigation, U.S. Senate, 1975, that's when we really started to learn in bulk about the NSA, the existence, and that it monitored Americans. And the director of the NSA testified that the agency monitored phone calls of any anti-war Americans to figure out who the quote-unquote hippies were, and they would automatically put them on a list, like, suspected war criminals or anti-war foreign criminals or foreign sympathizers. And the NSA actually had some success in catching people, and so they went a little off the deep end, and it basically, and still to this day by what Snowden says, is a intelligence witch hunt. I mean, there's keywords that they look for, there's key phrases that they look for, there's mentions of certain cities that they look for. And this whole Patriot Act thing blown out of proportion, people think, if it ever stops, we'll all be free. No, guys and girls, you got to wake up, because they are going to monitor you. They are going to monitor you no matter what. And they say, go ahead.
I had to write a paper on that back when I did my terrorism class on basically is losing your privacy and freedom worth the safety and risk. And honestly, if you're not doing nothing wrong, what are you worried about?
Exactly.
Just because you're a conspiracy theorist, they're not going to come after you unless you're a threat. If you run out to the hardware store and you start buying a bunch of certain length steel pipes and other materials, they're going to pay attention. But if you're not doing shit wrong, then what are you worried about? They're after the ones that are, I'm just going to blatantly say it, but they're after the conservative radicals that are out blowing up abortion clinics, or, the militias that have never seen a damn day of military training, but think they're Rambo and hate the government, which, they were saying Obama was going to take our guns. No, he's not. Obama really didn't give a damn about your guns. That's just whether or not you like Obama, I really don't care. But nobody's after your guns. And, I'm taking constitutional law next month, and if they give me the option of what I'm going to write about, I'm going to write about the Second Amendment. That's my pet peeve. AR-15s are wonderful. Woohoo! I got an AR-15. Actually, I don't, because I don't need no damn AR-15. I have hunting rifles because I hunt. That's all I need. I'm not worried about the government knocking on my door. I'm not worried about, again, if you're not doing nothing wrong, you've got nothing to worry about. But automatic weapons, which some say are illegal, and apparently so they are illegal with the right license, but they don't belong in the hands of civilians. They're a military-grade weapon. And, you know, I get into this fight with veterans. Well, it's my right to... No, actually, if you look at the Second Amendment was geared for muskets and the fear of England coming into America. That's what the Second Amendment was geared for. Had nothing to do with today with our sophisticated weaponry and somebody knocking on your door. Anyway, I'm done ranting. Go ahead.
Well, Corey, here you go. Let's kill the whole. And I'm not anti-gun. I'm just anti being an idiot with a gun.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, like myself, my vision sucks. My vision sucks. At close range, if anything, I'm going to have a pistol. But do you really want me having a rifle?
No, I don't.
Exactly. And
you would hit the broadside of a barn.
I know I wouldn't.
So
no, you would.
Look, here's my theory on it. Okay. No, I don't think anybody should be able to have fully automatic weapons. Sorry, that is, like Cooper said, those are military-grade weapons. Those are for fighting war. They have no other purpose than for doing just that. You should be able to have a handgun. You should be able to have a hunting rifle. I mean, you should be able to protect your home, and you should be able to go hunt for food. Okay, great. Secondly is I think that anybody who gets a gun license should have to go through the hoops. They should have to make sure that they're not a freaking psychopath. And then thirdly, I think that anybody that gets a gun license should be required to take lessons on how to shoot, how to clean, how to take care of the gun, how to use it properly. There should be a mandatory thing that says, if you go get a gun license, that you're going to have a gun, you go buy a gun, you have to go and know how to use that gun. The biggest problem that we have is that nobody, well, let me rephrase that, not nobody, there are a lot of people who go out and buy guns that don't know how to use them. And I'm not saying that anybody who's listening or who's in the chat room, that may not apply to you. You may know how to use them very effectively. But there's a lot of people out there, and I can't tell you how many people I've talked to that have said, yeah, I went out and bought a gun. And I said, well, have you ever shot a gun? No. Really? You went out and bought a gun you don't know how to use. Great. Keep that damn thing and you away from me, because I don't want you anywhere near me if anything goes down, because you don't know how to use that thing. So, I think that is a big ticket thing, and there's a lot of people that will get, their hair in a bun about it. But, that's the reality. I mean, it's just common sense. If you're going to own something that is as dangerous as a gun can be, a gun can kill a person, and it can kill a person at a long distance. Okay? We're not talking about, people will say, oh, a knife can kill somebody. Yeah, but you can't throw it 200 yards and kill somebody. You can't. Okay? So, yes, you need to know how to use that weapon.
What I thought was funny was just in the last year, there have been, 3 or 4 different machete killings. I mean.
Oh, no.
Yeah. I think one was actually a Buddhist monk that used a machete to kill, I don't have the news sources right in front of me, but yeah, one was a Buddhist monk that actually killed someone with a machete. Anything can be a weapon. You don't have to have a gun. You don't even need a knife. I taught my soldiers how to kill with their bare hands. But yeah, and Markham brings up the point that back when the Second Amendment was created, it was to create a well-armed militia. And I look at the militias today, and the reason I hate militias so bad today is because of what happened in Harney County, Oregon, just last year. Because the sheriff of Harney County was a really good buddy of mine back in '93. We were in Somalia together, and the crap he went through with a quote-unquote militia, which were nothing but a little band of dumbasses that had no business being in Harney County to begin with. And that was from the Bundy Ranch. If you remember that joke of a damn story.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it was the Bundy clan that went to Harney County, Oregon, and took over the wildlife reservation. And, you know, they were calling for the militias and whatnot to go join them, and militias showed up, and they followed my buddy's mom around. I mean, really? A 70, 80-year-old woman you're going to follow around and harass her? Seriously. So,
Wow.
yeah, she actually had me on speed dial, because if Dave ever needed some military backup, then we would have been on the way down there. But, you know, come on now. Militias, if you look at half the militias, they're a joke. They've never seen a damn military day in their life and watch too much TV and hate the government, have their Bible and the rebel flag, and there you go.
Stolen valor. What I have to say, you guys, though, and I know it's slightly off topic, but it's damn good radio, and that's all that matters. We're keeping asses in seats listening. Now, for real, we have all this monitoring, and even if, and what this monitoring comes to, like you said, okay, Obama's going to take the guns. He didn't take the guns. Well, here's the thing. If any president, Obama, Trump, whoever, if any president were going to flip that switch where they decide that we are now prisoner, they're not going to take the guns. All they have to do is shut down the roads. That's it. That's it. And the people who don't have a food supply, done with. The people who don't have electricity, done with. They won't even have to lift a finger. Sandbags at the end of the main road, and if your ass ain't been to Walmart, you're done. It's a matter of tickle me Elmo when it comes to this stuff. When someone says it's popular, everybody runs out and gets one. Just like fidget spinners. Fidget spinners right now are the new, kids with fidget spinners are like Remington arms and the guns. But it goes hand in hand because the right people profit off of this, and they profit off of our fear. They let just enough information out to make us fearful. But those of us who are wise are prepared to begin with. Now,
well, and that's why after 9/11 they created the terrorist warning, which is a joke, and it started out with the the red and the orange and the high and which it never ever has hit green. They've always kept it at orange and red. That's called fear mongering. There's more people that die in a car wreck than there. We actually discussed this in the class I'm taking too. There's like maybe 300 deaths due to any form of terrorism a year. The chance of you dying by a terrorist act is so low it's not even on a meter. So it's nothing more than fear mongering that the government's throwing out. I can't remember which president it was, but I recall after 9/11, there was actually a president that encouraged the public to go out and do Christmas shopping because nobody wanted to leave their homes. Do you remember that?
Yes.
I think that was Bush.
Yeah. I do remember that. Now, one thing, and I'd like you both to answer on this. I want you both to give me an honest answer here. Now, you both have Facebook on your phones, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Now, have you ever noticed you sit your phone down? Maybe it's across the room. Maybe it's right next to you, but you sat it down. You're talking with your family or you're talking with your buddies, and the next thing you know, you go to, I'm going to check Facebook. In the suggested ads is something that you've been talking about, not something that you typed up. Not something that you emailed, not something that you said or did physically to a computer. You didn't say, Siri or Google or whatever. But it's right there. Like I talked with my wife, I says, one of the things we need to do is this and this around the house. And the next thing you know, there's an ad about household chemicals that comes up. Does that happen to either of you?
To be honest, I haven't noticed, but I'm
No,
probably
either
going to look
have
now. I wanted to add something to a little bit of what you were talking about earlier. Is basically take a dart and throw it at any one of the alphabet soup agencies, and any one of those, and every one of those, their original design, be it was supposed to be for other countries, it was supposed to be pointed at, but every single one of those was designed to bend the facts a bit, change things, create fear-mongering. And they were designed originally to do that to other countries. But as we've seen the way things have gone in government, they've basically figured out that if they turn that to us, that they can get more done here. They can make things done the way they want to here. And that's what they've done. Every single one of them.
It all boils down to political party and agenda. If you look at it, every one of them's had their own agenda, their own accomplishments they wanted to make, be it to line their pockets with money, whether it be to, for power, their 15 minutes of fame, whatever the case is, they all have an agenda. And the way this country is run is based on one of the two-party systems. Now, if those two-party systems actually work together the way they're supposed to, rather than tearing the country apart and dividing it, they would be a secure country, hands down. And talking about the National Security Council, the National Security Council was designed for international terrorism, international intelligence. Then the Homeland Security Council was created by Bush, and that was for domestic intelligence. I'm trying to remember how it went. Then Obama came in office in 2009. He merged both of them, which was the best thing that could have been done, because both councils had the same employees, the same members of those councils, which the president was one, the Joint Chief of Staff was another one, the vice president was on that council, and the Director of Intelligence, which is the CIA director, is also on the National Security Council. Now, we bring in Trump. Trump has now fired the National Director of Intelligence from the National Security Council. He's also kicked off the Joint Chief of Staff. They're no longer on the National Security Council. He basically took the two most experienced, the two most knowledgeable when it comes to the intelligence community, and removed them from the National Security Council. I'm just learning all this in the last few days when I've been reading my chapters in the text and getting caught up or whatnot. But so now he's taken away all of our intelligence to keep the country secure. The wall he's talking about is not going to do a damn thing. And I don't know. I shake my head because they're weakening the country. They're not making it better. Make America great again. I have to laugh every time I hear that word or that phrase. Anyway.
Yeah, Corey, I sent you a link, boss. I would really like your take on that. I put it right into the Skype. And, I'm going to engage you guys in this. We had Snowden, they say, and Chelsea Manning just being released from jail. And I see all the people saying, oh, he should be for treason, this and that and whatnot. If you're going to put him up for treason, why is General Petraeus not up for treason? Because honestly, what I'm going to say isn't G-rated. But he was given his to that little bimbo secretary he had. He was basically telling her secrets in exchange for pussy, and that's what he was doing. He was telling her stuff that she really didn't need to know about. He was bringing work to a place. I mean, not only was he a cheating ass bastard on his wife, but he was telling shit to people he shouldn't have been telling them to. And there's a big difference between General Petraeus and Chelsea Manning, and that was rank. And shit rolls downhill. Now, both of them leaked shit they shouldn't have leaked. But in the case of Chelsea Manning, he let loose a lot of stuff that really makes the good veterans look bad. And really, you know, it's like, okay, a lot of the animosity, and, you know, I don't know if you had any military, Corey, or not.
No.
No. Well, Coop, with you being a veteran, I mean, doesn't it really get you sometimes when you hear someone who might be a little uneducated kind of pissing on all the troops? Because you guys, just like anybody else, sign up to do a job. You know, they say ours is not the question why, ours is but to do or die. And when you think about it, when most people go into the military, you know, they're 17, 18, 19 years old. And depending on who's in office, you're either, you know, you're there to serve and protect, and you're thinking that you're there to serve and protect and look after the American people. And I have no doubt in my mind that if something ever landed on this soil that we had to deal with, that all the vets who could would be standing up right along with our current military and kicking ass and taking names. But you got so many people out of fear and out of ignorance pissing on the troops. I have the utmost respect for what everybody who is ever able to sign up. But then the other side of it, the thing that really causes the problems, is like when you have some of these guys who would take some of the things that was leaked, is how they would take, for example, a baby and they would toss them to a bayonet like horseshoes. And I mean, that's not what our military is. That's not what you guys are. And because of the acts of, like, you know, a few irresponsible people at Abu Ghraib, the whole of the military has to eat the shit and the backlash from, you know, the anti-war people. And so what's going on right now is a case of the Willie Lynch syndrome, where our establishment has everybody, left versus right, paper versus plastic, white versus wheat, you know, chocolate versus vanilla. Everybody's against everybody in this, but nobody is looking where we need to look. And I'm not saying fight the government. I'm saying love one another when it comes to all of this. And if you're listening and you're a vet, I want to personally thank you for your service.
Oh, absolutely. I thank every
Exactly.
vet, every time I see them, you know, I know they're a vet. I thank them for their service. Appreciate what they did. But I want to back up for a second.
Go ahead.
Okay, go ahead.
You know, you were talking about, you know, Petraeus. Why isn't he, you know, in jail under prosecution? Hey, for that matter, why isn't Hillary Clinton under prosecution? Why isn't George Bush II or Dick Cheney under prosecution? I mean, all of these other idiots did some of the same stuff. They took top secret stuff and spilled it right out there. They both should be strung. All of them should be strung up when it comes right down to it.
True. Yeah, you do make a very valid point.
Anyway, let's step up for a sec too, and because another thing we had to talk about in class was, do politicians belong in security? And
no.
No, they need to have the experts. And I don't like the word expert when it comes to the paranormal. No, but experts in the fields of terrorism, experts in the field of intelligence, experts in the field of security need to be running the security department, not some damn politician who's going to have an agenda. Now, I saw that shit firsthand. You know, when I was in Balad in 04-05, the rules of engagement were you see an Iraqi setting up an IED along the highway, you shoot him, you kill him. We come back 7 months later, I go to Telefar in 05-06. The complete rules of engagement changed to that same Iraqi you see setting up an IED, you don't shoot. You detain him, you call it an EOD, they dismantle the IED. which, okay, EOD is Explosive Ordnance Division. They're the ones, they're the bomb techs that come in. IED is an improvised explosive device.
Mm-hmm.
And, I have to remind myself I'm not talking military here. To civilians. So that same Iraqi that's setting up an explosive to kill us, we have to detain. EOD is going to come in, dismantle this device, and then we're going to let it go. So don't do it again. So, it goes from take care of business because we got politicians backing us, supposedly, to win hearts and minds, which ain't doing a damn thing because we're occupying their country. And the way I explain it to the ones that, we weren't we were occupying their country, because honestly, I have to look at the big picture and say, I think the Middle East, Saddam wasn't a good guy, but was it really our damn business? When he went and invaded at Kuwait, that was different. But come on now. We don't need to be sticking our damn noses in every foreign country's business. That's where we're wrong. Now, going after terrorists, sure. Invading a country and occupying it, no. If we had a country that came and occupied America in the same way that we were occupying Iraq, you would have Americans fighting left and right, just like the Iraqis were us. So, come on now, wake the hell up. Do politicians belong in security? No, they do not. Not even a little bit. That's why this country's weak now.
Yeah,
Well, what you guys think about this then, Corey? How about the new requirement for anybody to run for president? They have to have served in the military.
I'm down with that. I think my only problem is most of us have PTSD, so would I really want a president with PTSD? Probably not. That's my only problem with a veteran for president.
Mm-hmm.
I think I don't know if that's necessarily a great thing, like what Cooper just said, but I think probably what should happen is anybody who is elected president, let's say, should then have to go and do some of the training that the military has to do. They should have to go and physically spend, 4 or 5 months learning exactly what they do, how they do it, how it works, and what they have to go through. And I put a point on this, should then have to go to the military hospital afterwards and see all the ones with PTSD and torn off limbs. They should have to experience that.
Mm-hmm. Well, see, it's so easy for them to say, let's push the button, let's send troops over, because, they're not sending their kids. They're not
no,
sending
not even
their
a
kids.
little bit.
I mean, did Bush or Obama really think the idea of putting guns in their daughters' hands and sending them over to the Middle East? No, but they had no problem putting guns in the hands of other people and sending them over to die. And it's pretty sick that our military is treated expendable like that. War is death and destruction, and it's not going to be pretty. Yeah, I get that. But, I mean, for me, that would be a pretty tough, hard decision to be like, okay, we're going to do this because we're going to be engaging in several years of conflict in which there's going to be a lot of broken families. There's going to be a lot of people coming, having that knock on that door and handing the flag to somebody. And has to be considered.
You know who gets pulled into the military? Poverty-stricken families.
Yep.
Mm.
I want to interject here, though,
Yeah.
that I think there should be a requirement that if you're elected to high office, and I don't care if it's Congress, I don't care if it's Senate, and I definitely don't care if it's president, vice president. If you're elected into those offices, it should be a requirement that if you demand that we go to war, your kids are the first ones enlisted.
Boom.
And my mate and I discuss this once in a while, but I remember, I can't remember who it was, which prince it was, but one of the princes from the UK actually went to Afghanistan. And it was a stupid move on his part because he would have put his whole unit at risk, because you know damn well the Afghanistanis would have been all over trying to kidnap him just for ransom. But I know there was a prince from the UK actually went to Afghanistan as a soldier. Prince Harry, there you go. Yep. Markham clarified. Yeah, and I saw that as honorable. But at the same time, yeah, he was stupid, and he put his unit at risk because and he got yanked out. They found out, oh my God, Prince Harry's in Afghanistan. But, he was trying to do the honorable thing. And he's royalty, so yeah, he can't based on his status. But no, I remember sitting in Iraq in the DFAC, in the dining facility, and if I remember right, George Bush's daughters were getting in trouble for drinking underage. Mm-hmm. I'm like, you can sit and drink underage, but you can't serve your country. Seriously. And Fahrenheit 9/11, the movie with Michael Moore. I love the part in that movie where he actually goes and he tries to interview all the congressmen that are walking out of their building, Congress, asking him, is your kid? He had a recruiter with him, and he's like, has your kid ever served? Are your kids military age? Would you ever consider putting them in the military? And they shunned him. They kept on walking. And yeah, they're above everybody else, so their kids ain't gonna serve. It disgusts me.
Yeah, that's there again. It's like I said, I think it should be mandatory law that if you're elected to high office and you demand that we go to war, your kids are first up. They're the first ones to go into military, and I wouldn't put it past saying that if your kids are under age of being able to enter the military, they need to go into ROTC.
I like that. I was in ROTC in school. I was disqualified for military service because of my vision. I was prepared to go into the military, and I really kind of went into a depression because I couldn't. I was ready to roll. I had a GT score on the ASVAB of 103. I was raring. And I have successful family members who went in there. But, in this whole thing, in this whole discussion, we have the CIA sitting here, and they're like, what about us? What about us? Well, if we want to get into the CIA now, we can, or we can turn a whole nother show because, we're having a pretty good, deep discussion. That's up to you guys. What do we want to do?
Well, actually, we're intertwining them all, so it all fits. It all fits.
I kind of was going to start kind of working back to topic here a little bit.
Go ahead.
The CIA, which is another one of those covert groups, good at bending the facts to make sure they get their way. Founded September 18th, 1947. Founders are Dwight D. Eisenhower, Allen Dulles, Harry S. Truman, and William J. Donovan. So I guess, as we're going along here, and we're talking about these different alphabets and getting the histories and stuff in them, a lot of us know the histories and stuff. A lot of people do. I think a lot of our listeners probably know a fair bit about some of the histories and some of these things. The question that I want to route to is, how do these alphabets, as we look at them, start intertwining, and then how does the alien factor come in? Where do these things meet, and who's doing what? That's the question I have.
Well, it all comes back to the secret government side of it. Because you got the government that everyone sees. You got the websites they'll see. You can go to CIA.gov. You can go to FBI.gov. NSA.gov, ICE.gov. They all have their own website. And you can see the cut and dried facts that they put out. But they all have their dark projects, their black projects, they call. And that's where you see funding getting siphoned off into these black projects. CIA, for example, with the MK Ultra program, they were the ones responsible for mind control. So the CIA overall was in charge of intelligence. I don't like the CIA for the way they got their intelligence, because they're the ones that did torture. They're the ones that did the waterboarding. They're the ones that did the, even back as far as Vietnam, they were doing waterboarding. So, yeah, it all goes back to, and I think the CIA was the worst of them. You don't hear a whole lot about the FBI. FBI is pretty much terrorist focused. But when it comes to the Department of Homeland Security, there's more threats with natural disaster than there is with terrorist attack. And that's what they're trying to shift into, is cause that's why FEMA was pulled into the Department of Homeland Security as well. Because FEMA covers, and a lot of people hate FEMA because of Katrina, but FEMA is what covers your natural disaster side of it. But again, they all have a dark side. They all have their black projects, and that's where you find the alien side with the CIA. Again, not so much with the FBI, but I think you have to look at Air Force intelligence, naval intelligence, because they actually cover a lot more of the alien, USO, and things of that nature.
See, that's why, guys. Go ahead.
Well, the CIA was also the ones that did the remote viewing program.
I want to kind of touch in on something here. I have had the opportunity, I'm not going to say it's a pleasure or displeasure, to be a councilman. So I have got to see government working in it. I'm telling you right now, the government, I don't care what level you're at, it all works the same way. I have got the chance to see government in action. And it is amazing. Absolutely amazing how much they cannot communicate. Different agencies within the government. Nobody knows what the other hand is doing. They do not. They never do. And the worst part about that is to get anything done. To get anything done, you have to go through 2 or 3 agencies usually. But none of those agencies know what the other one's doing. So it becomes nearly impossible to do anything. Now, as we take a look at that and we apply it, think about this. So we have all of these alphabet agencies. All of them have their hands in the dark side stuff of whatever it may be we consider paranormal, whether it be aliens or remote viewing or, astral kidnapping, whatever it may be. The question is how well are they communicating with each other? You see how much they blunder up all the time. It makes you wonder, because if they communicate as well as all of the agencies that the government at lower levels have to work with to get anything done, I mean, just the simplest projects, really simple projects for a town. I can only imagine how bad it is up here in these upper levels. Everybody has their ego of they are themselves, and they're the best, and da-da-da, and you stay out of my way. It's no wonder that so much of this different stuff gets leaked out at different points. I don't think all of it is leaked out to divert people. I think there's a good percentage of it gets leaked out because these idiots can't talk to one another. And I think that works a little bit to our own advantage.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, just doing a Freedom of Information Act, for example, you have to go through 10 different channels to get something approved so you can view it, and then after it's blacked out. Because they have to talk to this agency, who has to talk to that agency, who has to see if this other agency over here has it cleared. And yeah, and that was the problem was security of the country. And that's why 9/11 happened, because this agency over here knew stuff, but this agency here that had the way of acting didn't know what this agency knew. So yeah, the left hand never talks to the right. And that's with all the agencies. And you're absolutely right. I mean, and I know we're a little bit off topic, but while I'm taking this associate's degree, I'm writing a list. I'm writing a list of disasters or threats that are up here in our own community, and I'm going to be approaching emergency management. I'm going to be approaching all these different agencies around here and asking them, so what about this? What are we doing to keep this area safe? What are we doing about a warning system that half the community doesn't even know about? And why isn't this happening? And, because you look around and, Corey, you live up here. We have threats all around us up here, right down to militias. And like you said, the right hand doesn't talk to the left. These people ain't responding over here because of these people over here. And, you look around, and if some of these people knew half the stuff that's really going on, they would move.
Oh, yeah. Seeing a lot more Border Patrol cars coming up through here, heading up, I imagine, up to the Ross Lake area.
And, and that's ICE. Now, ICE is actually the intelligence arm of Department of Homeland Security, believe it or not. I always thought ICE was only immigration. ICE is actually human trafficking, drug trafficking. They have a whole array of jobs they do, not just immigration. So, yeah, it makes you wonder what they are doing up here. Because I've noticed that for quite a while, that there's a lot of ICE trucks that come up and down our highway up here. Now, for our listeners that have no idea what we're talking about, the Canadian border is only about 40 minutes north of us. And there's actually parts of the border that aren't even there's no fence, there's no wire, there's no nothing. You can walk from Canada right into America just through the backwoods. So and that's probably why ICE is up here, partially, but. And yeah, Markham's bringing up Paracon.
Yeah, he's threatening to move up here.
Oh, he's more than welcome. Hell, we'll set up a lab.
Yeah, no kidding.
We'll set up a lab, and Markham can analyze everything. Hands down. So, yeah, getting back to and it does have to do with ego, because the CIA director, they just saw their shit didn't stink. Nobody else knew anything that they were doing. And, you don't hear a whole lot about it again. And maybe some of our listeners can help us with that. I haven't heard anything too negative about the FBI when it comes to the paranormal side. You got anything for us, Seth?
As far as the paranormal side, just a theory regarding the FBI and the NSA and the CIA and the scenario in which they may operate based upon information and research, because I really haven't. One news source that I did find anything remotely on, to me, seemed kind of sketchy. And at keeping with a sincere image, I really do not want to use anything if I'm not 100% sure of the validity of the website. But I'm going to throw you guys a scenario, and this is based upon things I've read, and you guys can weigh in on how you think it might play out. Now, the scenario is that Corey actually shoots or detains an extraterrestrial. He isn't abducted. Nobody else knows but Corey. He's home alone. This thing comes to visit. He's able to detain it in his closet, kind of like the case with Dr. Reed, but he put it in a freezer. Now, Corey gets a hold of Coop, and he says, "Hey, Eric, I want you to keep this on the down low, but I actually have a gray alien in my possession. And right now, you're the only person who knows about it, and I really want to get rid of this thing before, everybody comes home. And I want proof of it. And I think what we're going to do with this proof is, let's say that Markham is in the vicinity. I really want him to come take a look at this thing. And then if there's any proof that we need kept and monitored, I want to take an SD card and I want to take pictures of this thing. I want to record it. I want to copy these SD cards, and then we're going to find a way to figure out how to get them to Seth." Now, with that being said, the NSA has listened to the phone call. The NSA has notified the FBI, who's going to come physically check it out. And then after the FBI comes and physically checks it out and possibly takes the evidence, the CIA is going to take you two, and quite possibly me and Markham, if the evidence has all made it our way, and we're all going to have that sit-down talk. I hope you guys value your families and this and that and whatnot, and you probably better shut up. Now, I think the thing is that the CIA themselves aren't going to do the dirty work. To me, this is where the Men in Black come in. I really think that the Men in Black kind of are in bed with every one of these organizations, and they kind of act in the way where you go to a small Mayberry-type town where your police officers are also your firemen and your EMTs. Now, with that being said, what do you guys think?
Well, something I want to add into here is just kind of a food for thought. All of the rest of the alphabet, we can kind of say let's just put them as they're kind of the dark side of things. They're looked at more as the fringe groups, right? Your CIA, your NSA, and ICE. But nobody ever really looks at the FBI. FBI has been around a long time. But what everybody doesn't think about is it's the Federal Bureau of Investigation. It doesn't say the Federal Bureau of Criminal Investigation. It says the Federal Bureau of Investigation, which means those guys are investigating everything.
Mm-hmm.
I don't care if it's aliens or what it may be. They're investigating. They're involved. So something just to kind of keep that, as food for thought in there. Don't ever count those guys out, because I guarantee they're investigating. And they're probably got just as much evidence on this stuff as any one of the other groups.
Well, I'm going to say real quick, too, when I was stationed at Fort McPherson in Atlanta, Georgia, I was bugged. I know that for a fact. Because anytime you have your phone ring and you pick it up and you hear clicks, there's nothing there. You hang up and it rings again. That's generally speaking means you're bugged. Because I had a security clearance working in Third Army and had to deal with secret files and whatnot, it had nothing to do with paranormal. I had everything to do with Middle East. That's what Third Army runs. I was followed. I had black suits running around my apartment complex. Were they there looking for me? Probably not. But you just never know. But do they watch? Oh, hell yeah. They watch hands down. And addressing the Men in Black real quick, so I think it was Craig was asking about Men in Black. There's different types of Men in Black. Men in Black date back to the 50s, and some of them are alien, some of them are government. It all depends. Today, if you have a 1950s car pull up and you have these strange-looking Men in Black guys come up, then yeah, they're alien. Then there's also the theory that they're time travelers. Have you guys ever heard of that theory?
I haven't.
No.
The question was, and I went back here to look. Craig stated, he says, MIB,
Okay.
are follow-ups? No. Trying to figure out what these aliens are up to? Question mark.
Some of them are. Some of them are trying to find out what you know. And if they think you know too much, that's when you'll get threatened. Some of them will threaten you. They don't have a little device that erases your memory like you see on the movie. Although that would be kind of cool to get your hands on. But, yeah. No, a lot of times the cases that you do hear about is after somebody saw a very large sighting where there's multiple people that witnessed the sighting. And I'm reading as I'm talking. I'm losing my train of thought. And so, yeah, they'll come to your house. They'll ask you what you saw and see how much you know. And if you're going to talk about it. If you're going to talk about it, that's when you start getting threatened. They start talking about your family, things of that nature.
Andy asked a question. He says, did they follow you because you're pagan, Eric Cooper?
No, it had nothing to do with religion.
No, my opinion would be your work with aliens and UFOs.
Yeah, at that point in time, I was actually heavily into working with abductees and UFO research. That was actually at the peak of my research time, so that's why. And I was actually using a government computer to research UFOs when I was on 24-hour duty. So, yeah, you start getting into a classified building and you're looking at the UFO research, and they look at the history of the computer, they would probably start, yeah. And that's probably why they're trying to see what I knew and why I was researching UFOs. That's also the point in time where we had a lot of civilians working in this classified building, and had the opportunity of discussing FEMA with an ex-FEMA employee. And she quit FEMA because she wouldn't elaborate. I don't know if she was scared. I don't know if, I really don't know. But she said she quit FEMA because of what they were doing. And again, she wouldn't elaborate. And I was just, you mean the government takeover? And she said, I refuse to comment. Like, okay. So, yeah, and I actually had to teach FEMA about the military ambulance. That was kind of interesting, too. The capabilities of it, how to load it and whatnot. So, yeah. Well, like I said, a lot of people don't like FEMA. I like taking FEMA courses. Interesting information to know when it comes to disasters, because, again, your biggest threat around up here is a volcano, dams, landslides, earthquakes, and, well, windstorms occasionally. And again, we have a lot of, and reptilians. Speaking of reptilians, I'm still waiting for this phone call or this text message from somebody who's confirmed that there's lizard people on Sauk Mountain. And if they're listening, by all means, get a hold of me, because I'd like to hear their story. Because I've been talking about reptilians on Sauk since 2011, 2012. And that's the first time I've ever heard another story about it, other than what I know. So, by all means, if this local Skagit County person is listening, get a hold of me. I'd like to hear your story. And by all means, nobody thinks you're crazy, because we don't think anyone's crazy on S4 or Spaced Out Radio or Forest Moon Paranormal. And for our listeners that haven't heard of Forest Moon Paranormal, look for us on Facebook. We are the emergency response team for the paranormal. We don't really give a damn about pictures, EVPs, that kind of thing. We are here to handle whatever's going on.
Just to clarify,
but because just to clarify, yeah, because we do have our listeners that have never heard of Forest Moon Paranormal. They just found us through Spreaker. They found us through multiple search engines, whatever.
And just to clarify on that, when Eric says we don't give a damn about an EVP or picture, we mean that in effect as showing it off. Look what we got. We do in the manner of if we're having to do an investigation to find out who and what is there and why, and use that to show the client what's going on. Yes, we do in that manner. But as for the type of stuff you see on TV where everybody's just excited and all weirded out because they got an EVP or a picture, no, that's not us. That's not us at all.
There you go. Yeah. See, that's why I have co-hosts. They help clarify everything we say. But yeah, and it's just really irritating because half the cases we get have had other teams and other groups that went and investigated, quote unquote, investigated, and said, "Yep, you got something here. We don't know what it is, but look at this really cool picture we got. Have a nice day." And now they've actually one confirmed to the client that they are indeed having issues, not clarifying anything as to what it is, just that they do have issues. And they've also, at the same time, poked and prodded whatever is there giving them issues. So now this thing's pissed off, and they leave the client hanging high and dry, and they don't know where to go. So a lot of the phone calls, like I got last week, are people in tears and terrified because they don't know what to do. And that's where we come in. We come in and remove or mediate, pass over spirits, combat aliens now, and combat negative entities. So that's where we stand. Yes, if you're a client and you have a picture or an EVP, by all means, we're interested in those. But if you are another team or group and you went to Waverly Hills, join the club. There's been 100 different teams that went to Waverly Hills. Woo! Yeah. So anyway, that's where we stand on that. What do we got next?
I have something for you guys. Unless,
what do you
Corey,
got?
you have... Yeah, all right. Here you go. Now, have either of you heard of the case of Stan Romanek?
No.
That sounds so familiar.
I'll tell you. Stan Romanek supposedly set up a camera near a window in his house, and he filmed what many people believe to be an authentic gray alien coming up to his window. With this film, he got national acclaim. He had even been, I'll tell you, for those of you who haven't heard of him, how to pronounce his, or spell the last name. It's Stan, and then Romanek, Romaneck, I believe. But anyway, he got national acclaim, different paranormal interviews, talking circuit, stuff like that. So many people believed. And then the next thing you know, they say that he had child pornography on his computer.
Mm-hmm.
Now, with that being said, now his wife had stood right by him and said, "No, I don't believe it. I don't believe he did anything like that. I've never suspected anything like that." But here's the thing. The reason I brought this up is it becomes not a counterpoint to what you said earlier. If you're not doing anything wrong, you don't have anything to worry about.
Right. Right.
Because both of you guys ought to think, and the listeners too, and consider the fact that there is so much of this and other deplorable crimes being committed online in hordes and hordes of these crimes. So why is it that so many ringleaders of these human trafficking and child exploitation organizations who are doing this to people, why are so many of these people going uncaught and unjailed and unsentenced? And yeah, you have the whole thing with the Pizzagate and the Rothschilds and the rings in the UK. But my thing is in a way, if he did have it on his computer, then he's sick and he needs to be strung up by his toes and bled out in public. However, However, benefit of the doubt for a minute. Why is it that the one person who comes up with some pretty damning evidence all of a sudden has this stuff on his computer? And with that being said, don't you think that these organizations who monitor things, they can turn around and doctor your backlogs and your information and your hard drive, and so that if Eric Cooper and Corey Ruiz and Eric Markham and Seth Kinsey all find a gray alien, that the next thing you know, we're going to get our 15 minutes, we're going to be on Spaced Out Radio showing Dave everything, but then the next thing you know, we're going to be in jail. Smear campaign. Do you guys think that's possible? And when you research that, I want to come back and touch this topic and see if you guys think that's what happened to him.
Oh, I think it's very possible. And let me finish this real quick.
Yeah, go ahead.
I think Trippin hit it on the head here in the chat room. You asked the question of why these others weren't caught. Well, they're suppliers to the rich. You know, there's a lot of rich people out there, the big corporations and all these different things like this, and in the dark rooms and stuff. They're a bunch of sick bastards. And yeah, you know, these human traffickers and stuff, they're the suppliers to these guys. You know, they make money off these guys. So that's the reason why you don't see them caught. And not only that, then allows them to have that opening to do just like you were saying, you know, be able to pin something on somebody that they didn't do, you know, like the Romanek here. I think Dawn had said, did the wife see it too? And I believe the answer to that is that no, she didn't. That's the reason why she stood by it. So it's one of those where it's, you know, this is a whole big circle of life for the government here on these things here. Is they not only these other ones are being suppliers to the rich, the powerful. That's why they aren't getting caught and strung up. But then on the second hand of things, that also, like I said, leaves them a nice wide opening to take somebody who's being honest, doing, you know, good work to try to make people aware of the dirty, rotten things that are happening, and or aliens, and or whatever it may be, and take them and use that to make a smear campaign on them, just to completely destroy their credibility. And in the masses' eyes, it works very, very well. It takes a few people like us to look through it and go, yeah, I think that's BS.
Exactly. And, you know, I watched a video with Woody Harrelson today, and I like Woody Harrelson. He's awesome. He's a real down-to-earth actor. And he brought up the point that the American people far, far, far outnumber all the politicians and all the little peons in government. And we let things happen because, and that's why they keep the country divided, because they don't want us to get together. Because we can control what corporations and businesses sell us. You don't like GMO? Don't buy it. Don't buy GMO products. They'll go out of business. You don't like, this? Stop buying it. But that'll never happen because you're always going to have the group that's going to go buy GMO. You're always going to have the group that's going to, stick to gasoline so that petroleum companies stay in business. And we kind of have to. But if we ever got away from petroleum-based products, they would go out of business. And so that's why they keep the country divided, because they never want us to get together and go up against them. Not in war, not in a civil war, not in fighting the government, but let your voice be heard.
Well, add something to that too. You were talking about GMOs. You always have the people that buy GMOs. Yeah, you're going to always have people that buy GMOs because you're always going to have poor people. That's the thing. Mm-hmm. They have taken all the real healthy, good for you food and made it so expensive that only people who are really doing well for themselves can afford that stuff on a regular basis. All the rest of the people, they can't. So your GMO foods are what your options are. The crap foods is what your options are. You know, which in turn helps the health industry, medical industry,
Oh,
the guys at the
definitely.
top, because now you've got people that are sick and ill, and going and having to spend every dime they have to pay for either insurance if they can possibly afford it, and or spend it on the doctor itself because they can't.
And you know, that's exactly the pickle I'm in right now. A lot of the listeners don't know this, and I really don't mean to be personal, but on the 9th, I got results from my blood work back. And years and years of the night shift work, eating what I can when I can, and sleeping when I can and how I can, and being a zombie and not taking care of myself has resulted in me landing a case of type 2 diabetes and also a triglyceride count of 628. And they want your triglycerides below 100 if that's an indicator of where I'm at in the notion that I could very well have a heart attack at any time. Now, with that being said, all this talk we're having about the healthy foods and the affordability of such, the ABC organization right now that I feel does a lot of damage is the FDA, the Food and Drug Administration. They are responsible for just as much death and destruction as the terrorists that we claim to be after. You want to go after a terrorist, then tell me why in the blue hell that an ingredient found in Roundup is in Cheerios to like 36,000 parts per every millionth. Basically, Roundup is just about sprinkled on Cheerios. It's in it. And other cereals, and they say whole grain, sugar-free, fat-free. That's fine. But really, and yeah, it is a matter of affordability. It is a matter of affordability. You have uneducated people who, for example, you take a single mother who's on food stamps and public assistance, and for whatever reason, she's a single mother. Maybe her husband's in jail. Maybe he died because someone sent him to war so that they could look good. And she's not getting the benefits that were supposed to be given to her by the U.S. military for her husband serving proudly and bravely. But for whatever reason, she's forced into a situation where she has 2 or 3 kids, and she's living in a high-rent apartment where rent is now sometimes 45 to 50% of your income in some places. And so she is to maybe her last $25, and that's going to have to last a week and a half. And she's going to see that there's that soda, which is, buy 10 for $10 at 2 liters a pop. Or there's milk, and depending on where you are, the price of that's going to be $2 something, and if the economy shits the bed, sometimes almost $5 a gallon. And then a margin of affordability. You have them putting that stuff up there that you really shouldn't eat, but then you gotta eat. And there's marketing everywhere I look. When I started, I posted about my health on Facebook, and then I told you, Coop, last week, I gotta sit this one out. I missed work, I missed money, and I'm talking about having this condition. I see advertisements for Wendy's coming up telling me how I need to get the double stack, and I see advertisements for Mountain Dew, and I see advertisements for McDonald's and all these things that I've been putting into my body, and I have been the result of weaponized food. Has caused me to be overweight and has contributed to, maybe genetically I was screwed to begin with. But it didn't help. It didn't help. And the Food and Drug Administration is evil.
Seth, passing along a message that Markham says here. He says, don't let them put you on a statin drug. They are poison and will cause rhabdomyolysis. I can't probably screwed that all up, but and he says that
Veggie diet.
Yeah. Do a veggie diet. He says that that whatever that is will attack muscles, heart, arms, legs, all your long muscles. So
Definitely.
Yeah, no statin. No statins that causes rhabdomyolysis. There, I'll give a shot at this.
Where's Cardwell?
Rhabdomyolysis.
Yeah,
Cardwell.
Cardwell's next password.
Right. Yeah. Markham, shoot that word, rhabdomyolysis. There we go. Thank you, Markham. You got to send that to Cardwell for the next password.
There we go.
I gotta throw this in. FDA and the USDA, I believe, work hand in hand. Here in Washington, now we had goats, and we had goat milk. Now here in Washington, if I even give goat milk or even cow milk for that matter raw to my neighbor, I can go to jail. If you're in Idaho or Oregon, you can have a certain number of cows, goats, whatever, but only a certain number. And you can milk them and sell the raw milk. But here in Washington State, you go to jail. Do you believe that crap? You go to jail for giving raw milk away. And, it all stems, my opinion, but it all stems from when I think it was Reagan did the dairy buyout program. Because, growing up, there were dairies everywhere. This is known as a dairy county. And after the dairy buyout program, the small dairies, they couldn't compete. Now, if we want to spend, probably close to $1 million making a grade A dairy, then we can sell milk. But who's got $1 million to throw into a grade A dairy when you're not going to make your money back selling milk? So, yeah, you want to talk about corrupt, let's put some more money in our pocket, alphabet agencies, there you go.
Definitely. And then you have, with Monsanto being involved, and it's, around here in central New York where I'm at, we have a lot of dairy, but we have a lot of, the New York apples. We have a lot of Monsanto in bed up here. And if I'm close enough to a farm where Monsanto has subsidized a farmer, now if I make a garden and my stuff happens to be cross-pollinated, they can come around and they can say, legally, it could be my land, but they can say, look, you're close enough that there's a chance of cross-pollination. And if cross-pollination has occurred, you can't sell your crops. And not only that, but their seeds are made so that when the plants, finally come time to harvest, you can't reseed. Farmers used to be able to keep their seed for the next year, but no, a lot of their seeds are made sterile so that they can't grow anything. And that really puts a hold on our farmers and screws our economy. We all, guys, we're in the last 20 minutes. We got to figure out a way to get out of this. I know we talk paranormal and conspiratorial, but really, if you're out there and you're listening, thank you. Thank you very much from me personally. And if you really want to show your thanks, we do this out of our own free time and stuff like that. Don't get me wrong. But if you really want to show your thanks, I'm not going to ask you for any type of donation. I'm not going to ask you for anything like that, but I'm going to ask you to share us. Take the time to share us. You can share a funny meme. You can share a video of a cat, juggling or some shit. Share us. That's all I want you to do. And if I see that you have shared us, You know, I mean, you guys liked the band, but the band was cool. And that's the thing. You guys, when we shoot up, S4 is no joke. I feel we are a Nebula Rising, and I feel we are a contender to own part of the night. And I am very glad to be part of this. And if you guys want to take the last 20 minutes, that's good. I'm going to stay on listening, but personally, I'm going to bid everybody a good night.
Yeah, you've got a long day tomorrow. Yeah, I know you told me that earlier. And yeah, you know, and we talk, a lot of people think we talk negative, and you know, when you talk conspiracy, you talk, a lot of the topics we do, they are negative in nature. That's just the nature of the beast. So to perk it up a little bit, you know, I got 11 rows in my garden planted today, and that's what you can do. You don't got to rely on the store. You don't got to, you know, and I run a homesteading, a survival group as well, and it's full of all kinds of information. But you know what? Even if you're in an apartment, you can have a garden. And there's a lot of cities in America that allow you to have a certain number of chickens, not roosters, obviously, but hens. You can be doing things to take care of your family that takes a lot of the cost out and makes you not so reliant on your government. Get some chickens. Have your own eggs. Go to your local butcher and sit at Walmart and get some meat. It's a lot cheaper that way anyway. But, you know, just trying to get in the show tonight on a positive note, there are things you can do. And here in Forest Moon Paranormal, we actually teach survival classes, as well as the paranormal. We just had our wilderness survival class this month, as a matter of fact. And in August, we're actually doing a full-scale weekend camp out where we're going to actually do training on wilderness investigation of the paranormal type, whether it's going to be Bigfoot or UFO. And we're going to do more extensive wilderness survival training and base camp setup, as well as medical training. So there's things you can do to make your life more positive, whether it's plant a garden on your patio or get some chickens, you know, and we actually have some survival stuff in the Forest Moon Paranormal Library as well, in the file section. You got anything to add there, Corey?
You know, just to keep in mind that a lot of the laws that you're dealing with, like the one about sharing milk and stuff, are brought about by groups, companies like Monsanto.
Mm-hmm.
And the best way to combat that is to do just what you're talking about. You know, yeah, maybe you can't share it, but there's nothing saying you can't share the knowledge of how to do it. You know, grow your own garden. Show your neighbor how, if your neighbor doesn't know how. You know, get some animals that will take care of your needs for milk or meat or eggs, and show your neighbors how to do that too. You know, maybe you live in some place where you can't share this stuff, or you can't sell it, or whatever it may be. But there's nothing saying that you can't share the knowledge on how to do it. You know, that's the big thing, is us banding together at the human level. You know, we constantly hear about raising our vibrations, and we constantly hear the mediums saying that, you know, if we can't get our vibrations up, you know, things are going to go south even worse. This is how you do it. You know, it's you know, banding together with your neighbors and showing them how to do stuff, and them showing you how to do stuff, and beating the big corporations and the alphabet soup people at their own game.
Yep, and pulling your community together.
That's it.
That's really the key. Pulling your community together, cleaning up any problem areas that you have, and watching out for each other. That's the bottom line. Don't look over here. Don't look in Colorado or Idaho, or, you know, look in your own backyard. We don't even have cable in our house because, well, frankly, I was tired of the news. I get enough negative crap and negative news on Facebook live feeds. and news feeds. I don't even need to see it on TV. If I want news, I look out my window. If there's something going on somewhere else, I contact friends in those areas and see what's really going on. Because you can't go by biased media anymore. And you can't, if you're liberal or Democrat, you watch CNN or MSNBC. If you're a conservative, you watch Fox Farce News, There's no straight media anymore, and Dave Scott from Spaced Out Radio can tell you, if you're a real journalist, you don't have a biased opinion. You tell the news. That's what you do. But there is no such thing as a real journalist anymore. And he'll be talking about that at Paracon, actually, is ethics in paranormal media. So thank you for listening. Oh, go ahead.
One of the biggest tickets with media too is, and I've heard this stated before, is just taking the time and the patience and using your brain to look at more than just one source for something, and looking to see where the bullshit is, where the truth lies. And we have a lot of smart people out there, so sometimes act a little dumb, but they're still smart people. And if they just take a time and take a breath, something that we've kind of forgotten how to do in our fast-paced world anymore, and take a look at what's being stated in the media, you can find that truth in the middle. You take both sides and find the middle somewhere. So I've always said, anytime there's two sides of a story, somewhere in the middle is where the truth lies.
Well, not to mention when it comes to, you hear all this crap about Trump. I don't believe it all. To find out the truth about the executive orders, for example, he signs, go on the whitehouse.gov site. The executive order's right there. There's no lying about that one. They can, spread the truth all they want on media, but the documents are right there where he signed them, and you can read word for word what he really signed. So on that note, y'all have a great week, and we'll see you next week.
Good night, everybody, and thanks for playing.